I'm Selena and this is Pelikulectura. Today I'll be talking about visual storytelling and the film language. I've actually talked about this topic before, but due to copyrighted content, I had to take it down. Anyone can tell a story, but to tell a good story, it all depends on how would you tell the story. In writing, there is structure, and the challenge for filmmakers is to translate that visually or through sound. One of the biggest differences between written storytelling and visual storytelling is how would you portray something that is internal? How would you show what a person is thinking or feeling? For example, you can say a person is feeling sad. Of course, there's a more creative way in telling how a person is feeling sad in written form, but for convenience sake and for this example, I'm just saying that in written form, let's say that a person is feeling sad. Now, let's translate that into film. How would you show that a person is feeling sad? One of the most obvious ways to do it is to show someone is crying. But what if you don't want to be obvious? How else can you show that a person is feeling sad? Aside from showing that your actor or actress is feeling sad through crying or just pouting, you can play with other aspects of filmmaking. For example, lighting. You can create a more moody ambience just through lighting and shadows. Another way to do it is play around with sound. You can also add ambient sounds such as rainfall. It creates a more moody ambience, or at least in my opinion. And if you want to be more direct with your sound, you can play with music. But of course, aside from sound and lighting, you can also play with production design. Like for example, I've created this moody ambience with this black cloth and practical lights that are kind of moody, and I'm wearing a dark shirt. So how did I create this moody ambience that creates a sad vibe? It's because film is a language whether we notice it or not. And much like any other language, it has rules and grammar to it. So for this video, I'll be talking about different aspects of filmmaking and how you can utilize its film language to enhance your visual storytelling. Disclaimer alert, for the rest of this video, I'll be using my short film Ophelia by using it as an example in each category. That doesn't really mean that I'm some sort of expert or this great filmmaker. I'm just using it to avoid copyrighted content. Try to take it down, YouTube. Now that's settled, let's go back to the topic at hand. First, let's talk about directing. If you're studying film, be it as a student or just someone casual just browsing through film stuff, you might have encountered the term mise en scène. It's a French term that literally means to put a scene together. It usually pertains to blocking and staging and how you frame a scene. It's also a term that's being thrown around to basically say that everything inside the frame should mean something or has a certain significance to the story. And it's kind of true because as a director, you should know what's in and out of your frame. As a director, it's your job to direct the point of view of your audience. And when I say point of view, I'm not just pertaining to wherever the camera is pointing at. Like I said earlier, you have to be aware of what's in and out of your frame. As an example, I would be showing one of the final scenes in my film Ophelia.
So in this scene, Ophelia's parents are preparing for church. But Ophelia is still asleep, so the mom decided to wake her up. Notice how when the mom goes out of the frame, we're still aware of what area or what space is she on. The frame stays with the dad, and notice how the scene intensifies as the mom knocks on the door.
Leah! Ophelia! Ophelia, tayo na!
We don't switch frames until the dad stands up. This is when we switch to the mom's perspective where she's knocking on the door frantically.
Leah!
She stops for a while, and then the dad comes into the frame, knocking on the door more frantically than the mom.
Felia, sa pintuan! Felia!
Aside from the wonderful performance of the actors, the staging, the blocking, the camera placement, the sound design, and the editing help increase the tension in the scene. If you're curious and you want to watch the whole film, you can check out the link on the description box.
Next is cinematography. When it comes to filmmaking, your number one tool when it comes to storytelling is your camera. And as a cinematographer, there are a lot of things that you have to consider when it comes to visual storytelling and film language. camera placement, camera movement, shot composition, shot size, transitions, and of course, lighting. I know that there are a lot of aspiring filmmakers right now who are so into playing with their camera, and that's good because you have to experiment, try something new. But at the end of the day, you always have to consider the story. You have to remember that it's story above spectacle. So, what do I mean about story over spectacle? One of my personal pet peeves is how I could be enjoying a perfectly okay scene, and suddenly there's this out of nowhere drone shot being thrown at me. It just, why? I'm not hating on drone shots. It's just that I find them so unnecessary most of the time when it comes to films. I actually like drone shots if it's utilized in the story. An example would be one of the final shots in By Bust. It flew over the compound where the film mostly took place until it reached the middle class area of houses that are more separated with each other. And then it goes further and further until it reaches the skyline of high rise buildings. So, why do I like that drone shot and not other types of drone shots? Personally, I like it because it connects with the story's theme. And it's the only drone shot in the whole film. For me, By Bust is not a perfect film, but that shot is one of my most favorite drone shot examples that I used to date. Why? Because again, it goes well with the film's theme and context. So if that was a good example of using a drone shot, I'll give you a bad example of using drone shot. I will not be using any specific films for this example. This is just like a hypothetical situation. And again, if there's any coincidence that I'm referring to a film, again, it's totally just a coincidence and I'm not talking about anything specific. I'm not bad mouthing any film. So let's say, for example, we're talking about a drama film and the scene is dramatic. Let's say that a person is sad. Again, I'm sorry if I keep using the term sad. My brain, it's like almost 5 a.m. right now. So, but yeah, let's say this character is sad and he's walking down a bridge and suddenly there's a drone shot out of nowhere. I mean, for context, it could mean like some artistic significance that it's to show how alone that person is feeling, but stylistically, it's not my cup of tea. So if you're gonna use a drone shot, I'm not saying don't use a drone shot. What I'm saying is that if you are going to use a drone shot, basically use it wisely. If you want me to talk about cinematography in a more in-depth manner, I can talk about it more in my next video that will be just focusing on cinematography. Or if you want a really more hands-on approach, I'm planning to launch a short webinar series about filmmaking. If you want more details on that, you can check out my Facebook page on facebook.com/pelikulectura. But as of now, I'm not making any announcements. This is the first time I'm talking about it. So, yeah, check that out. Next is production design. Honestly, if cinematography is the bread for visual storytelling, the butter is production design. Production designer has to consider the location, the set design, the wardrobe, the color palette, the mood, and the tone of the film. To talk more about production design, I'll be using my short film Ophelia again as an example. My production designer for this film is Hannah Moore. I was very particular with the colors and the mood that I want to set for the production design, and I collaborated with Hannah in order to achieve my vision. But for the rest of the styling and the wardrobe, I put it in the hands of my production designer Hannah and my wardrobe head Vanessa Dakis. Next, we have editing. Editing is actually one of the biggest factors when it comes to visual storytelling and film language because yes, your shots came from the cinematographer, but it's the editor who will tie everything up together. Different cuts can tell totally different stories. Good editing can save your film, but bad editing can break your film. Again, I'll be using another example from my film Ophelia. I collaborated with my editor, Delano Agapito.
Let's watch this scene between Ophelia and her dad. We intercut between Ophelia and her dad in an over-the-shoulder shot. At first, it's very mundane because Ophelia is very unresponsive. It wasn't until the dad mentions Ophelia's girlfriend that we cut to this shot in a more close-up version of the initial shots before. The tension is thicker between them.
Bakit ka?
Depressed?
lastly, we have sound. Sound is often neglected when it comes to filmmaking, especially for aspiring filmmakers and filmmakers who are just starting out. Audio can make or break your film. People can tolerate bad visuals, but people just cannot stand bad audio. Sound design can enhance the experience, and much like with editing, it can tell a totally different story if you wanted it to. For my film Ophelia, Delano is also actually my sound designer, but for the music, the one scene that has music in my film, it was scored by Tamara de la Cruz from Run Collective.
In this sequence, I instructed my editor to focus on sound design. I could have used music, but sometimes the best music is sound design. I wanted to play around with the sounds because I wanted it to be cluttered and not impose any specific emotion other than the cluttered mess that Ophelia is in. And I wanted to show how blank her head is, even if she's listening to music in this shot. I didn't want to impose any music because I wanted to be more in her head where everything feels like a blank.
So to wrap everything up, I'll go back to my initial statement that anyone can tell a story, but to tell a good story, it all depends on how would you tell the story. There's nothing wrong with experimenting. Just remember that the context is the key and you have to prioritize the story above spectacle. Remember that when it comes to filmmaking, intention is the key. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please do leave a like. And if you have any questions or comments or suggestions for future videos, please don't hesitate to comment it down below. And lastly, please do subscribe if you want more content from this channel. Like I said earlier, you can follow me on facebook.com/pelikulectura for more updates. Not just for updates on this channel, but also for the possibility of me launching a series of online workshops, not just on cinematography, but also on production design, editing, sound design, and directing, and maybe writing. In the future, I'm also planning on collaborating with other filmmakers and not just me talking to everyone all the time. Because again, I'm not really like a super duper expert on filmmaking. So I'm just doing what I can to help people who want to learn more about filmmaking. So yeah, that's basically it. You can check out my other socials down below, and if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to ask. That's it. Thank you very much for watching.